Let's self-study whilst I work a 9-to-5 job. Today I am going to start off with my sketchbook. So let's go through the things that I really like in these spreads. Starting on this side, firstly, I really like the sketchy vibe that I have on all of them because I did all of them in pen, which I really like. So I'm going to keep that up. Secondly, I love the vibrancy of the watercolor paint, mostly on these two, and how colorful it's made it. So I definitely want to continue with that. Then on this side, again, I love the sketch-like of this with the pen, and accidentally some of the watercolor paint kind of seeped through and ended up a little bit here. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm thinking maybe I do a little bit more of that on these next few drawings. And then lastly, on this piece, I really like this aspect. Again, this is watercolor paint and I think it's really vibrant. I blended the colors together. I didn't match exactly what was in the picture because I wanted to have a bit of a deeper color with it. So I really like that. So I want to do a combination of those things and put them together. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. I'm going to think about it and look at it. But I think my favorite two are this one and this one, and then I just really like the color of this one and I think it's quite fun. So I don't know if I'm going to combine all three, but I'm going to draw a couple of variations with them combined and we'll see what it ends up looking like. So I've managed to get my A3 sketchbook onto my table, so that will be easier to reference, and I think this might turn out looking quite collagey, which might be quite fun. But essentially I want my Taj Mahal drawing to be mostly centered but a little bit to the side, then the one with the building and the trees a little bit like kind of coming off of the Taj Mahal, and then the cups maybe on the side. I don't know if I'm going to get the clothing in, maybe it can go more in the background. I might do these as separate images and then stick them down as a collage, but that might get a bit tricky with cutting things out. But I'm also going to get the pictures up on my phone to reference because that helped me a lot last time rather than only referencing the drawings that I've already done. To be honest, I should move them into their separate albums so it's easier to reference, but we're gonna have to go like this instead. So I've done the first part of the drawing, which is the Taj Mahal bit. Now, I didn't quite get the proportions right. This part is bigger than it should be, or this part is smaller than it should be, and then we should have more of these on this side, but I can't quite fit them in, so maybe the scale is a little bit too big, but I've got that. And I'm going to add the other two bits on here. I've decided to do it all on one page, and I can always try another version where I do it separately. But for now, I'm going to add the other two parts. Okay, so this is the final result of the drawing. I've got the Taj Mahal sketch that we spoke about here, and then on this part I decided to add the building where it was kind of sloping and coming out behind the Taj Mahal, and I quite like how it looked with the plant life and the trees on this part and then the building behind it, and I did make it a little bit longer. And then over here I managed to put the two little teacups. I didn't manage to fit the kind of clothing of this image. Maybe when I paint on it I will be able to do that, but I really like how this turned out. I was thinking of attempting another one, landscape, but then if I do it landscape, the building won't quite fit. So either I do this smaller or I do all three separately and then stick them together on a collage. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to do that, but for now I quite like this. I do want to come back and paint it, but what I'm going to do is I'm not going to redraw it because I actually quite like that we're missing some of this information. Otherwise, I think it would become too much of the focus. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this for now, and then I don't know if I will be able to in the next couple of days, but definitely later on in this video, I will paint this and get that into my sketchbook, and then maybe I'll do another one after I see what this looks like painted. But this is the result of this first drawing. So I did forget to mention it is a Monday evening and I worked from home today, which is why I was able to fit in some drawing, because as soon as I log off, I have about an hour and a half to do a hobby or some self-studying before I then have dinner, have a bit of me time, and then go to sleep. The next couple of days I am in the office and I do have a submission this week again, so it's going to be a bit busier. So during those days I will probably focus on reading Pride and Prejudice, and then it's a 4-day week this week because it's Easter weekend. So Friday I'm home the whole day and I will hopefully be able to paint and do a bit more drawing and stuff then. And then over the weekend I've got a couple of plans, but I should be able to fit in a bit more hobbies and self-studying. So when I work from home, I tend to be able to fit it in either in the morning if I wake up early enough, or after work. And then on the days that I'm commuting, going to the office, I tend to focus more on reading on those days because I can read on my commute, I can listen to an audiobook. I also take my Kindle with me, so I'll focus on things that I can read with. And then when it gets back to the weekend, that's when I do more drawing and art. And then I of course try and fit in the art and crafts events, exhibitions, museums, and online courses, or even in-person courses, as and when the opportunity comes up or I realize I haven't been in a while and I want to do one. So that's kind of how I try and balance it throughout the week. Good morning. I'm about to head into the office today, and so I figured I would read some Pride and Prejudice. Now this is my actual physical copy and I'm currently on chapter 11, so still very much at the start, and I'm going to be reading this on my Kindle because it's just easier to take around. So I do already have it downloaded, I just need to switch to the actual book because I'm in the middle of reading a few books right now. So I'm going to make sure that it's up to date on chapter 11, and then I can pick that up and start reading it. Now I am enjoying it so far. So when I read it, I actually read the introduction of this book, which gives some history, some context to the time it was written, to the author, and to the book itself, which was really interesting to read about. And then in terms of the actual book, I'm actually really liking it and I'm intrigued and I want to know more and I want to continue the story, so I am going to do that. I don't know why I don't pick it up that often. I think it's because I've been reading multiple books at the same time, so I've been getting a bit distracted, but I am going to pick this up today and hopefully over the next couple of days. So it's 7 p.m. I'm back home from work and it's still light outside. I'm home before the sun sets, which is incredible. I haven't had that in so long, but it's so nice to have that, and then I get to film in natural lighting still, which is wonderful. Now, I did manage to read some of Pride and Prejudice. I am now on chapter 16. I actually started on chapter 6 this morning. I'm not sure why I had this set to chapter 11, because that is not true. I did listen to a couple of chapters on Spotify in their audiobooks, and yeah, I'm on chapter 16. Now, this evening, I'm thinking of doing a little bit of research in terms of some art history and history courses that I can do online and in person. So I'm going to look at some museums and see what they have available. The ones that I'm thinking of looking at are the National History Museum, the Royal Academy of Arts, which I already know have short courses and lectures and things on their website already because I've done one of their classes before. And then also the V&A Museum. I think those are the ones that I'm going to focus on. And I'm going to note down the courses and classes that look interesting to me. And I can also decide if there's any that I want to go in the next few weeks or next month or so, and then I will also be able to refer to that list in the future when I want to go to a course. When I do things like this, I do like to watch either YouTube or Netflix on in the background just because it makes me feel like I'm still relaxing, so I'm probably going to do that. But like I said earlier on in this video, on the days that I go to the office, I do try and read mostly because that's the main thing that I find easy to fit in, especially on my commutes. But because I'm at home at a good time, I can still fit in a couple of extra things like this research. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to freshen up, have some dinner, and then I'll do that later on. Good afternoon. It is Friday now. It's Easter long weekend, which is wonderful. Yesterday I was busy with work, so in the evening I just chilled, and this morning I did a whole reset and tidied my room and washed my hair and did all of those things, which was really nice to do. And today I want to do some art, but first let's talk about the bits of research that I did the other evening, because I did in fact do that. So what I did is I looked on the Royal Academy of Arts, V&A and National History Museum, all of their websites, to see what classes that they have. And I saw a few. Most of the ones that I saw were actually on the Royal Academy of Arts, and I made a list of them. I listed what they were, where they were, whether they were in person or online, which museum they were with, and also the time and the dates. There were quite a few that seemed interesting, but then what I did is figured out which ones I think I could actually make it to. So for example, there's one in April, but that day I've already got plans, so I won't be able to make it to that. But then there are a few others which I think I could fit in over the next few months. There's also some courses on the weekend that seem really good to do. They're in person and they're like 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Some of them are across the week, so I would have to take days off. So having this set up is helping me plan it, and then if I want to go to any of them, I can book the day off or book the afternoon off or something like that, so that I can go to a few of these classes. So that's what I've done, and I've set those up, and that will really help me as I look into the next few months. I've also seen on Instagram a few courses that are done in London that are not part of these exhibitions. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that, and I'll also add that to that list as I see them and find them. So that's gone really well. I'm really glad that I've done that, because I think it will just help me kind of organize my month a little bit better, rather than wanting to do a course and not knowing where I can do one. So that's been good. And then yesterday evening, what I did is I actually did do this piece. So what I ended up doing was I did the watercolor paint here with the watercolor pencils. I think the other day when I was doing them, I dipped the pencil in the water and then drew it that way. But when I was looking on Instagram tutorials, they draw it and then they add the water on top with a paintbrush. So that's what I did this time round, and I ended up with this. I actually kind of prefer my way more, because I found it easier to blend the colors and to get a bit more depth and color to it. So I think I'm going to go back to my way, where I dip the pencil in the water. It's probably the wrong way to do it, but that's what I preferred. And then I played around with the oil pastels in this location, and I really liked it. It's definitely not got as much color, but I think it was still fun to do. And then I of course had the 2 cups here, which I wanted to do a different color than I had done before. So today what I want to do is I want to get this put into my sketchbook, and I also want to experiment a little bit more with the oil pastels. So previously I mentioned that I was going to maybe do another version of this and do it more like in a collage style with a few different papers that I cut up and stick together, but I've actually changed my mind on that. I just want to experiment a little bit more, mostly with the oil pastels, I think, because they were quite fun to play with. Maybe a little bit with the watercolors, but I think I just want to experiment with the oil pastels in my actual sketchbook, and yeah, play with the colors and practicing how to blend them. Maybe I'll watch a few tutorials on YouTube or Instagram, and I just want to do a bit of practice with that. So that's what I'm going to do for the rest of today. Okay, so I've got my sketchbook here. I'm just going to open to the next page, and I'm thinking what I want to do is, first of all, I want to actually get rid of this bit here, so I'm going to cut that off. And then I have this from like some Amazon packaging, so I think I'm just going to rip that off and use that as the background. And I don't want it to cover the whole page, do I? I don't know if I want this to cover the whole of the background or if I want space to write. No, I think I want it to cover, so let's do that. I'm okay with these not fitting perfectly, because I kind of want to have them layered on around, and I think that will look good. So I'm going to start sticking these down. So I've got half of the border down and I'm just putting the actual drawing on top to make sure it fits properly, and I can do the rest of the border and then fill in any gaps as well. We need a little bit more around here, along this edge, and also underneath, so I'm gonna add those in. Maybe I'll leave that there and I can just rip these up and start sticking them down. So I'm just gonna tidy it up and add a few little bits to it, so like this can kind of go, and I might use it to go here. And the thing is, I don't want it to look perfect, I just want it to look like a border. So I've done this side, I've added the border. It doesn't look perfect, but I still quite like it. That's how I wanted it to look. I wanted it to look a little bit messy, a little bit, I don't know, I just wanted a border. So that's what I've done here. And now it's time to go to this side and practice with the oil pastels. I was thinking of maybe practicing with the watercolor pencils too, but I might not do that yet. Maybe I'll do it later. Instead of being vertical, I want it to be horizontal and just play around with it. And I literally just want to play around with blending the colors, practicing a little bit, and just experimenting with the oil pastels a bit more, because I don't know, I quite liked it. I love the vividness of the watercolor pencils, but I feel like you can achieve that with the oil pastels as well. I just need to practice in order to get that. So that's what I want to do now. So first what I want to do is just experiment with blending different colors together, and then I think I'll look at some tutorials on oil pastels just to help with learning about this medium. So I'm just going to do a little bit of practice. Just from like blending some of the colors, can see how vibrant they are. I just don't know how you would do that in like a detailed way. So I think I'm going to either use my graphite pencils or maybe a pen and draw something quickly, and then try and see if I am able to use the oil pastels in that way and within that, because I think that's what I need more practice with, and I think that will help me a lot more. I really like the result. Now, is it the most detailed? No, but I really like the way that the colors are blended together, and it was really fun to do. Now, I did the original drawing in pen, but then I went over some of the darker parts with a darker oil pastel, and I really like how that's come together. So I'm just going to keep practicing, maybe with different flowers. I literally just searched up flowers on Pinterest to use so that I could reference that. So I'm going to keep going with that, but I'm really liking this at the moment, and I don't think I'm going to use the watercolor pencils today. I think I want to keep practicing with the oil pastels. So this is the result of the oil pastel experimentation. I really like the vibrancy of the colors, which I've said a few times now. I also like how they blended together. I found it quite smooth. Now, I have heard of something called soft pastels, which apparently are a different media to this, but a little bit similar, so I might look into that. But for now, I want to continue practicing with this. I'm also trying to figure out what I prefer to do as like the base sketch, whether I prefer pencil, pen, or the oil pastels themselves. At the moment, I think pencil works the best because it's easiest to kind of go over without ruining the drawing, whereas in this one I used pen, and it was just hard because it kind of showed through the oil pastels, so I definitely want to practice with that. And then I'm also deciding if I like using the darker oil pastels to do the outline, because I actually quite like how it turned out here, but I want to experiment with that a little bit more, ones with it and without the outline, and decide how I like them. Now obviously this was more focused on flowers, so I definitely want to practice it more with kind of other things, maybe like buildings and landscapes and things like that. So I definitely want to practice this more moving forward. I've heard that you're supposed to use like a spray to like set the oil pastels so that they don't go over onto the other page, but I don't have that, so I might just have to leave it as it is or use something to cover it for now. But that was really fun to do. And then this is the result of the other page as well. So this is how it looks overall, and I really enjoyed experimenting today. Tomorrow I will be heading into London. I'm not sure what the weather's like. It's actually very windy today, but yesterday was sunny, so I'm not sure what it's going to be like tomorrow, but I will take you along with me for that as well. Okay, so it's a few hours later and I just got I have like one tracing paper sheet, and also like normal sheet paper. So I just cut one of them in half, and I am literally just going to use that to cover the oil pastels so that it doesn't get onto the other page, and I just stuck it at the top. So that is all sorted now, and I've done a little bit of looking online with oil pastels, with soft pastels, and it's really making me want to experiment more with that. So I definitely think I'm going to focus more on oil pastels than watercolor pastels. So I don't know if I showed you earlier, but these are the ones that I have. I don't know when I got them. I think it might have been when I was at school doing GCSE art, but also could it have been that long ago? I'm not sure, but I never really used them that much, and I don't know why, but I'm glad that I have started to, so I'm definitely going to use them more. In the next few weeks, I think I'm going to try and go to like an art shop in London or a couple of different art shops and look for other oil pastels that I can experiment with, because I really want to focus on that. I used to mostly focus on paint, whether that was acrylic, watercolor, and then I started with gouache paint. However, I'm really liking not using paint and instead using these other mediums. I also liked chalk a lot when I was younger, so I'm wondering of maybe mixing the chalk and oil pastel practice together. And I think I'm just really liking not having to like take out paintbrushes and take out all the paints and then also all the cleanup afterwards when it comes to like acrylic and stuff. And I'm finding oil pastels are a lot easier to just take out and use. So I definitely want to practice with that a lot more, and also ones that are maybe a bit similar to that. I obviously want to be careful and not spend too much on stuff that I'm not going to use that often. So I'm going to experiment a little bit more with these oil pastels, and then I'll see what I end up with. Now, I did mention that I'm going to London tomorrow, but I don't really want to go shopping for art supplies just yet because it feels too soon. I definitely want to look into it a little bit more, do a bit more research, and then decide what I want to get and if I want to get anything, because maybe I already have all of the stuff or most of the stuff that I want. But I definitely want to practice with this a lot more and just experiment with it because it's really fun. I also kind of made a list of things that I could use for reference or to draw from and practice with. A lot of them are kind of TV shows and stuff that I like. So I've been watching Smallville, so I'm thinking of maybe doing a spread where I just draw things from that. And I think having that list will help me when I want to sit down and draw but don't know what to draw from. Then I'll already have a list of things that I want to draw from and that I already know that I'm interested in using as references. So that's that sorted. I am going into London tomorrow, like I mentioned, so I will speak to you then. Also wanted to talk a little bit about self-studying in the week. Now today, because it is a bank holiday, I've luckily had an extra day off from work, but this week has really been, the past few weeks have been quite intense at work, and so it's meant that my self-studying and my hobbies have been reduced a little bit to what I would normally do. I would often have a bit more time in the evenings because I wouldn't be working later, or I would have an actual lunch break that I would do bits and pieces in, but I haven't had that as much this week, and I am slowly learning how to adapt to that, because before I used to get quite frustrated when I would plan certain things and not be able to do it for whatever reason. But I'm slowly starting to adjust to it, because the way that I look at the week in terms of self-studying is, first of all, I do tend to have my priorities that I would really like to do. One of them is usually got to do with reading, whether that's a book that I'm in the middle of or that I want to start reading, and that is kind of my main focus on the days that I'm commuting. And the other one is other forms of self-study, and that really does mix and match. Right now I seem to be very much focusing on my sketchbook, which I am having so much fun doing, and I really hope that continues. But it does vary. Over winter I was focusing more on art history and history studies. A few weeks ago I was doing more courses and classes online, so it really does vary. But I think I'm starting to look at it where every week I have two main focuses. Like I said, one of them would be a book that I'm reading and the other one would be something else, and if I manage to fit in other things during that week, that's great. But if I don't, that's also okay, because sometimes it just gets busier than you maybe want it to be. But that's something I'm learning to balance, and it's something that I'm definitely getting better at in terms of self-studying whilst working a 9-to-5 job. Like I said, this week, because today has been a bank holiday, I've managed to fit in a lot more artwork that I would otherwise do on the weekend if I don't have other plans. But I'm definitely getting better at kind of mixing and matching and figuring out, oh, I have an extra hour in the morning on this day where I can do something, or an extra hour in the evening when I can do something. And another thing that's really helped with this is actually the reduction of doom scrolling. I deleted TikTok last week, and most of my doom scrolling was done on TikTok. Now I am doing it a little bit on Instagram, which I am trying to reduce, or at least trying to look at things that help me. Most of the time it's tutorials on drawing and stuff that I've been starting to look at. But because I deleted TikTok, I've managed to use that time in the evenings either to do one of my hobbies or self-studying, or to go to sleep early and wake up early the next morning and fit it in the morning, which I've really been enjoying doing that actually, because it's meant that I've got a really good night's sleep and I managed to start my day off with something that I enjoy and that fulfills me, whether that's reading a little bit in the morning, whether that's getting some filming done in my mornings before I head off to work. Sometimes I've managed to draw, or last week I managed to book journal in one of my mornings because I woke up early enough before I needed to head off and commute. So that's something that I'm really working on. It's just optimizing my mornings and my evenings and kind of my free time in a better way, because I really was doom scrolling so much and I was getting so frustrated with it, not just because it was ruining my sleep because I was staying up and doom scrolling when I should have been sleeping, and so it also affected the next morning, but also it was just wasting my time for hours when I really could have been doing something that I enjoyed doing, that was fulfilling, that was something that on my list that I wanted to do, which is what I've been managing to do this week, last week, and maybe the week before is when I started it. But it's definitely switched up since I deleted TikTok, and just have been a lot more mindful and intentional with when I consume content and what the content is. So that's something I'm working on, and that's something to definitely keep in mind if you are self-studying or trying to find time for hobbies. It really is viewing the content you consume, when you consume it, and how much of it you consume, and whether that time could be used for something else that's a little bit better for you. So that's definitely helped with my self-studying this week, because I think the past couple of weeks since I've been more mindful of that, I've really managed to fit in so much more self-studies and hobbies than I have done before, which has been amazing because I had been wanting to do this for a while. I do have to say part of that might be because it has been sunnier, or we've had longer days, it's been brighter in the mornings, brighter in the evenings, which has just meant that I've wanted to maybe pick up things a little bit more often, that I've wanted to maybe film a little bit more often, and so that's probably helped as well. But I'm really happy with how this is going. Anyway, I will speak to you tomorrow morning when we head into London. Good morning. It is in fact Saturday morning now. I'm running a little bit late, but I should still make it on time for my train to get into London. So I'm gonna head out very soon. I have obviously got ready. I woke up an hour later than I wanted to. I wanted to wake up at 6 a.m. I got up at 7 instead, or maybe a bit later than that. No, 7. So I'm going to head off really soon, try and catch the train and get into London. I'm heading to Kensington Gardens, so hopefully I'll get a little bit of a walk in prior to getting there as well. But I'm gonna go and head in, and yeah. Good afternoon. I am in fact back from my day out in London. It ended up turning into a solo day as well. So at first I went to the event in Kensington Gardens. We went to the Serpentine Gallery and did a bit of a walk. And during that time, it was actually quite cold and windy. But then I wanted to head into Marylebone. So I went there, I had some lunch, and then it was sunny on and off, which was really nice. And then I carried on walking. I popped into a Waterstones. I also went to a little stationery portion of a store and I saw a few different types of pastels and pencil and like colored pencils. So I saw one which was pastel pencils, which is actually what I was looking for. I'm not entirely sure if that's what I want, so I'm going to do a little bit of research. I didn't buy anything. I just wanted to have a look to see what was kind of available, so I definitely want to look a little bit more online to kind of figure out what I want, but I think that might be an option. And then I came back home, so I did do quite a lot of steps. I ended up doing 22.5k steps, which is wonderful. This week I have slacked in terms of my normal home workout, so it's nice that I managed to get in quite a lot of steps today. But that is how I balance between self-studying and a normal 9 to 5 job. And thank you for spending some time with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.